Hello, back with another video. Oh my gosh, it's been like a while since I posted, like a week. Um, from when I'm recording this, anyways. Who knows when this gets posted? But yeah, let's take some time to review my life's work. For anybody who's interested, obviously. Um, Sorry, I'm a little bit sick. A little. So yeah, let's take some time to like just wander around my work, which is writing. Love writing. Creative writing and storytelling has always been like a big passion of mine. So, I thought why not make a video for anybody who happens to be interested, of course. Um, and yeah, we're gonna lock in and just show this stuff and see if I can get feedback from anyone. Number one, what is the book about? This book is essentially based off of a lot of Dark Souls, medieval fantasy type of thing, and especially it's taken a little bit of inspiration from Deep Woken, which is a Roblox game. Um, if you've watched my other videos, I played it like once. Probably gonna make some more videos because now I'm starting to get a lot better. Um, and what is Heartbeater? Because that's the name of my book. Heartbeater is a story about a young man who basically strives for the peace of the entire world, which is a pretty boring goal in my opinion. But I feel like what makes it interesting and diversifies it is the fact that in terms of looking for solace, he's always in a state of dissonance where he has to sacrifice his morals, sacrifice even his friends to attain his dream of pacifying the ever-violent world of Heartbeater. And what is Heartbeater? The world was essentially first created by a being or a conceptual being, the first concept ever created, which was rhythm. Rhythm is the cadence of everything. There's rhythm in one's heart, right? Hence the word Heartbeater. There's rhythm in the walls, the way they're made. There's rhythm in everything in this universe. There's always a rhythm, right? And essentially, these rhythms, once a heart synchronizes with them, can essentially create supernatural powers, right? That's how people get their initial powers. They resonate with an existential rhythm. And so this is why, like, say for instance, one person is fighting another. The rhythm can be disrupted from a heavy heart, like the heart beating fast, getting nervous. That's when a rhythm gets weaker, right? And the main character's rhythm is a complete antonym of what he strives to make the entire world, which is bingo, solace. Now, solace is going to be a very important word, If you guys don't know what solace means, you probably should not be watching this video. Just kidding, just kidding. Obviously, I'm just kidding. But solace essentially is a meaning of true peace. That's pretty much what it is. I can look that up real quick though to make sure I'm not LARPing. But yeah, hold on. So yeah, it's a noun that means comfort or peace. So yeah. And another thing is, I know that dissonance is not a word, but it's pretty much just the opposite of what solace is, and it's what the main character has to deal with in search for solace. So essentially, let's just take a step back and look at how the world was created. Essentially, the rhythm is what created the center heart, which is an archipelago of islands, right, that expand across a giant sea. Like, it's pretty much endless almost. No human has ever charted out the entire expanse of the center heart because of it's simply too big, and some of the seas are just too dangerous. With the initial rhythm being a thing, there are animals who can coexist with this rhythm, right? It just as humans can with their heart, animals can, but they just don't have enough like brain power as like Homo sapiens would per se have. So this being the case, when an animal synchronizes with the rhythm, they literally just go brain dead and turn into monsters. That's pretty much how most of the monsters are created, but we'll move on to that later. So the rhythm created the Centaur, and humans began to dwell on the lands of the Centaur. Civilizations bloomed like wildfire. Pretty much everything happened, right? Conflicts happened, wars, and let's just say, there's a lot of that in this book, unfortunately. But yeah, the main character's name is Adney, A D, comma N-E, based off of my name. If you can guess it, that's tough. No. And then you know, essentially, he is grown up in a desolate village on, I'd say, the coast of the Centaur, like probably near where the islands just stop. And he's very isolated from the rest of the world. He's never been to the biggest cities like the Doctrine or New Kind, which he will be in the story, obviously. But he hasn't been there yet. He's shielded, and his parents died in a winter storm. Now, Adney, since growing up in such a small village, was very shielded from the world and the horrors of the world. I mean, he still fought like the occasional minor threats, like a resonated wolf, which is called a giant wolf, or a green bear. He had fought those before, and he had bested them in combat because, you know, he wasn't a bad fighter. If anything, it's a naturalistic reflex for him to be a good fighter. You know, he's a decent fighter. So after that, right, he essentially gets approached by this person named Serpa. Serpa is a retired Rosita general, but nobody knows he's a general. He actually only suggests himself as a foot soldier, but this later gets revealed because he gives Adney a C-class recommendation to Rosita. C-class is the third highest class, I believe, that you can give. Obviously, there's a B-class recommendation and an A-class recommendation. And you can't give those out just willy-nilly if you weren't a general. The reason why Serpa gave it to Adney is because he could recognize Adney's future rhythm connection. Now, other people with rhythm can basically sense other people's heartbeats, know when they're prone to getting their rhythm, know this and that, right? So him seeing this and seeing his potential, and along with his natural fighting skill already when he was defending the village from minor threats, gave him a C-class recommendation. Serpa gives him a C-class, which would get him into Rosita pretty much automatically. Rosita, what is Rosita? It is one of the many factions in Heartbeater. Rosita is essentially a, how do I say this, a freedom fighting organization that fights the horrors of the world, that be it human or monster. They're the good guys, essentially, right? Quotation marks, good guys, quotation marks, right? Essentially, he gets that. And Adney, you know, he has no intention of using it. He kind of wants to stay in the comfort of his village. He's already experiencing a sense of peace with minimal responsibility, and all the responsibilities he has, he can handle. He can handle the responsibilities. So he doesn't really intend on moving anywhere. He doesn't really intend on making his life anywhere dangerous or any worse than it already is without his two parents. So now, Adney, you know, taking the recommendation and the weapon that Serpa gave him as a gift, which I'm still hashing out the details. I don't know what I want the weapon to be like, but he's gonna be using it for like pretty much half of the entire like story. So I have to think carefully about what weapon he's giving him. Essentially, you know, he goes home with the recommendation and the new sword. And he basically plops down on the couch and falls asleep. He's had a long day, so he falls asleep, right? And he wakes up in a dream. This dream is not really a dream. It is more of a vision, right? So he wakes up, sees white and memories floating in the sky that are not his. Then, when he looks down, he sees a woman, or a girl, right? A girl. He sees a girl. This girl is a child who happens to look exactly like him. Um, he thought it was weird, and then they began to talk. Um, the girl explained that this was the future, and that if Adney followed the music, we're gonna get to that later, that he would experience this peaceful future. And not only he would experience it, but everyone else would as well. So, with this being said, he essentially backed up, talked to this girl for a little bit longer, um, asked her who she was. Before she could answer, he hears the faint ringing of a harp. Or not really ringing, huh? That's kind of stupid for me to say. But he hears a musician's harp from outside of his abode, which wakes him up. He wakes up groggily as ever, grabs his weapon, hoists it on his back or his waist. I don't know what it is, so you're gonna have to allow me to hatch that out. But then he goes outside, right? And going outside, he sees the biggest crowd he's ever seen in Sao Paulo, which is the village he's at. He sees the biggest crowd ever. He's never seen a crowd this big. There's music booming through the center of it. Essentially, it is a big event that he has never seen. He must have been asleep for at least a few hours for this to aspire. But it only felt like a few minutes when he was talking to that girl. Essentially, he goes outside, navigates the crowd, and then he finds the music. Quotation marks the music. So what that is there's a bard in the center of it. There's multiple, but there is a bard who basically brings their musical talents to villages isolated in the center heart. This bard looks Adney directly in the eyes. Now, this is odd to Adney because there were so many people and he was focused, and my fault. And the musician was kind of priorly focused on, actually making music, but this time he just stopped to look at Adney. And then, with a crooked finger, he suggests, "Come here." Now, as this happens, this essentially, obviously makes Adney suspicious, but for some reason he can't help but to follow the music, quotation marks, because he saw a future. He didn't know why it felt real or why it felt obtainable, but he wanted it, and he also wanted it for the rest of the world. Now, although isolated in Sao Paulo from the rest of the Center Heart, he knew what happened outside. He heard of wars, he's heard of Sarpa stories from being in the Reseda, right? And he knew sometimes it was terrible and unfair, and he wanted to get rid of that for everyone. So he walked over to the bard. The bard then whispered in his ear that